Okay, I see the other guy, so I'm controlling him. He's not moving, and me, I'm like somewhere else off the screen. So I'm gonna run right in behind him and it should slam into him. Perfect. I don't think you're ready for this. I don't think I'm ready for this. This Godot engine is very powerful and very quick. I feel like I'm just working with some really lightweight scripting language that we've all been familiar, like think Python or Perl back in the day, where you can just kind of hack some stuff together and get it working. Well, I just want to show you how simple it was to get multiplayer synchronization up and running. And yeah, I'm using the research that I've done online, especially their sample templates. But you know, a template is only one thing. You kind of just see it and, well, how did that person build that template? Well, I'm going to show you that today. I'm just going to dive in and try to make a really fast multiplayer synchronization where the goal is to get the players running around and being synchronized between two clients. So let's just see how that's going to go today. I just wanted to show you how fast we can get something like this up and running. All right, so let's dive in. All right, first thing let's create a couple folders, scripts. Let's create our assets, and I think we'll do scenes. And I'd like to create a DIST folder for our builds, and we're gonna add that to our GITIGNORE. All right, so what I'm gonna do is really quick, I just wanna add that distribution folder, that DIST folder that I have down here to my GITIGNORE. I think we're in the right folder. Yeah, so let's do vim.gitignore, don't know how to spell, there we go. Press I to write, and then I'm gonna do DIST, and then hit escape, :WQ. That's how you do vim. And if we kill this, let's go back into make sure that that change was properly done. Yes, as you can see there, we got our DIST folder. Okay, just to be sure we don't accidentally commit anything like that. Let's go ahead and create a new scene. I'm just gonna call it a level. Okay, go on the ground and let's create a plane mesh, and I'm gonna make it pretty big. Let's do 200 by 200. All right, so we have this big white mesh here, and to make it collidable, we just need to select it and come up to this mesh thing and hit create tri-mesh static body. And we can get rid of our extra one. Okay, that should be good for our terrain. Okay, let's go over to the ground. Let's select our material. Sometimes this interface is a little clunky and it takes some getting used to. I always forget where a lot of the things are. Okay, so we need to add a new material, and we're gonna add a standard material 3D. There we go. And then once we have that, we have to click on that, and then it'll show this menu. And so let's go, we'll open this one up. We'll open roughness, and we'll open a normal map. And let's just bring in our textures. Put these guys down in the assets. All right, so then we come in our textures, and let's add the diffuse up here to the albedo, however you say that. Okay, now you can already see some color there. And then let's add our roughness. I guess these are big images, and that's why it's kind of kludging along. Okay, and then we'll turn our normal map on and drag that over. And I think I want to just try to add a light. I'm trying to remember what that was. I think it's directional light. Again, this is all pretty new to me. Ooh. Oh, you could see how that did some cool stuff there. We can move this shadow a little bit. Okay, so these look okay. And let me see, let's try to put it up a little higher. There we go. All right, so I just needed to make some little adjustments there, and now we have a little bit of a world going on. And let's just run it really quick. Do I want to save the current scene? No, I don't want to do that. So let me just create our startup scene. I'm gonna name it startup, and this will just be a node. I'm gonna move it under scenes, and it's already under scenes. Perfect. Okay, so let's open startup. Let's run it, and then we'll say yes, select it. Okay, and nothing because we don't have a camera. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. We don't need to worry about that right now. All right, so first let's build our startup scene out. So what we're gonna need here is a plain old node. Let's name it level, and let's add another. We're gonna do a spawner. This will be fun. Okay, and then let's also add a little bit of a UI control. Let's add a panel, or where is it? Actually, we don't need a panel. Let's just do a vertical box for now. And in there, we'll create a button, 2 buttons. Okay, one of them, let's name this host mode. And then the other one, it'll say, here, let me just rename it. And then this one will just say connect client. Okay, so we'll have 2 little guys, 2 little buttons there. And let's check it out here and see how we can expand this. Let me kind of really small here. I always struggle with this part, so bear with me for a minute. Let's up here under transform. Let's make this like 400 and then 150. And then I think we can come down into the button, and I think we do theme, fonts, font. Let's do a file system font, and we'll just bump up the size to, like, I don't know, something larger. Host mode. So let's see. All right, so we have our 2 buttons that are somewhat legible. Okay, great. All right, onto the fun stuff. Let's come up to this level spawner really quick. And so this is kind of interesting because what a multiplayer spawner does is it gives you the ability to spawn something on the clients when a server spawns an item for the client. So if we add this level here where we're gonna add like our world to, we're gonna take this little level object over here, and our world object will be spawned there, and our server will spawn that. And because we're gonna add it to this auto spawn list, if the server sees that, hey, we spawned something that's in this list, it'll propagate that spawn throughout all the clients, and then it'll show up on the clients. It'll be synchronized over the client. So this is a really powerful tool here. All right, so we'll just drag over level. Actually, yeah, okay. And then we gotta make sure to uptick this to 1, the spawn limit, and then auto spawn, we'll just add an element. And then we're gonna drag over the level scene that we created very early on, because that's gonna be like a whole nested scene that gets spawned. And since this is our main startup, we'll go ahead and grab our startup script, which I did not create yet. So let's create a script. Startup. Okay, and that is a simple node. And let's create another script, and we'll call this level. And that one will be a 3D node. Let's see how that turned out. So let's open up our scripts. Okay, so we have our startup and our level script, and we will create one more script called player script. Let's just get it ready. Player, and that will be a character body. So there it is right in front of me. Perfect. Player, character body, go. Okay, so let's just open that up too. Great. So, and you can see we have this basic movement things here that we'll go ahead and customize a little bit. Okay, so we got our 2 scenes. I think we need 3 scenes. So we need to create a player scene. Okay, so that will also be a 3D scene. We'll hit OK there. And let's just build this out really quick. I think we need a collision 3D. Let's go back over to our level with our world and our map, and let's see what that looks like. There we go. Okay, here we're also going to add a couple more things to help with the spawner. Let's do a multiplayer spawner again. And then we need to add a player node spawn. So what this does is similar to the level. We're going to spawn our players under this object. So the spawner has a place to assign it to once they spawn. And again, if a player gets spawned and the server sees that and it's in this auto list, it will spawn on the other clients. And let's say we can have 4 people for now. And let's go back to our spawner, our spawn list, and let's just drag over the player scene. So we got our player scene that will be spawned into here, and that will represent the individual players once they come into the world. Okay, so we got our world, we got our startup level, which is just kind of kicking everything off and houses the whole application. And then we've got our level, and then let's finish out this player scene really quick. I think let's add a collision shape, 3D. And oh yeah, and you have to come over here. There's a couple little things, little quirks you have to get used to. I always forget, like after you add something, like, oh, there's some additional menu that you have to add another configuration. That would be like my only gripe with this, but other than that, once you get familiar with it, it'll go smoothly. It'll go much smoother once you get used to the flow of it. And take notes, because that way you'll remember. All right, so we have that, and it's just gonna complain that I don't have a static 3D body, but we'll get to that. Oh, you know what? I created this player scene incorrectly, so let's go ahead and close that and
recreate it. I don't know if there's a way to change it, but I'm just gonna delete it because we didn't really do anything.
And let's create it correctly. We'll do a scene, we'll name it player, and we're gonna actually import from the character 3D body. There we go. Okay. And now let's add a collision. I knew there was something off about that, and then we'll add that. And we'll click on that and we'll add a little capsule, not a sphere capsule. And now it's good. Okay, I knew there was something wrong with that. And I believe I need to go fix something under the, let's see, player scene. Yeah, let's re-add this player scene. I don't trust that. That's the other thing, that sometimes when you make a change behind the scene or delete something, it'll still have the reference to it. And I don't know if those references self-update. So it's always good to go back and reapply those links between the different objects in the scene. Okay, so let's go back to our player, and let's do a quick, I guess let's just finish up the multiplayer stuff really quick. I need a synchronization. I need 2 of these, and not nested. Okay, there we go. Okay, and the first one, let's call it server synchronizer. And I spelled that terribly. Synchronizer is a hard word. And then down here, we'll say player input, whatever. Okay, so the top level is going to be the player. So we're going to synchronize the whole player object, which is this thing. So the whole server is going to do that. And then let's take a look at the player input, and I need to create one more script that I forgot about, but then this guy will actually be referenced to itself. And then we need to create one more script called player input. And that will extend from synchronizer, I think. Let's try it out and see what happens. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay, perfect. So we'll come back to that one later. Startup. Okay, we're just gonna plow through the code at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna bring over a model. Where did it go? Okay, let's add this up to, I think I have a folder for models in here. Assets, let's create a new folder, models. Cool. Okay, so let's add this model to the scene. Awesome. Okay, click on that, make local. Cool, so now we have an animation player. So I do want to make an animation tree. It takes a minute and it's always a little kludgy to do it, but let's just plow through and try to do it. I think everything looks okay. Let's actually check them out really quick. So here's my little guy. Oh, let's bring up the capsule collider. Boop, 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 boop. And good enough. Okay. Let's do a 3D node. And we'll make that a camera mount. I don't know if this is the best place to put this, but we're gonna do it for this. Camera, 3D camera. All right, excellent. Oh yeah, let's, we gotta adjust this camera mount. Oh, we also have to adjust the player. For some reason, it gets imported 180 degrees the wrong way, so we just have to spin it back around. And then this guy, let's back him out. Yeah, just bring this down. Yeah, I think it was messed up. Okay, let's bring the camera back. To about, let's see if I click on the camera, I think you can preview really quick. Nice, okay, almost. Just move it down a little bit. Okay, good enough. All right, so we got our camera somewhat good place, and we've got our player pretty much set up. Let's just run through all the scripts really quick. So our startup script, let's see what we got. Okay, let's make our button callbacks really quick. So let's drag up this guy. Okay, so now that we have the startup script, let's go ahead and wire these up correctly. Okay, so host mode, connect, and let's do this. Oops, connect this one. Great. All right, let's just see that we're doing this correctly. Nice. Okay. And let's actually make that scene a little bigger. Project settings. Where are the settings for the window size? Here we go. 2048 by, let's try that. Yeah, okay, that's a little better. Great. Okay, so when the host gets pressed, that's when we're gonna wanna create our server. Now, don't be fooled by this host thing. Even though it says host, this will absolutely run as a standard non-peer-to-peer type of system. So we're saying host because for this demo, we're gonna be able to run a client and server on one of the instances of the Godot game. And then if you want to run it separately, like a dedicated server build, you can add a little bit of functionality to that, and it will detect that it's a headless mode or a dedicated server build, and it'll be able to run perfectly fine. So this, don't think like, oh, this is just another host mode. Like, let's see a real example. Yeah, this will absolutely be a real dedicated server if it needs to be. All right, so let's go ahead and set up the server. Okay, so we'll call a start game method right here. And let me just create that really quick. And let's take our UI, let's hide that. And if this is a multiplayer dot is server, then let's go ahead and change level dot call yard load. And we're gonna load a resource, and I love how it auto populates. And so this is basically like if it starts on a server mode, it will go ahead and just kick off the actual gameplay scene, which in this case is the level scene. Okay, so now we got to create another method called change level. Okay, so this is a little bit of a cleanup code here where if we have an existing scene, we'll be able to discard anything that was in there or left over. I don't think it's really gonna be relevant for this demo, but I'm just gonna go ahead and add it in case you wanna use it. And again, this is also from the example that Unity provides, one of the examples. I don't actually remember which one it is, but let's see. Okay, so this is important right here, this add child. So we're gonna take that scene that we just got passed in, and we're gonna instantiate it, not init-ref it, instantiate it, there we go. Okay, so that'll basically set up this whole, did I say E? I meant C, okay. Great, okay, so then we change level, it'll go ahead and instantiate that scene that we pass in here, and we do this call deferred. It's kind of a wrapper that allows any kind of existing scenes or any logic it allows the existing logic to finish up before. It's kind of like an asynchronous way to load the next scene. At least that's how I'm understanding it, and it gives the game a chance to clean up whatever it's working on, and then load the next scene that you wanted to load as the child here. Okay, so we have that working, and let's build out our client connect logic. We're just going to use my local host for now, but again, you can actually put a real server here. I was testing with this today. I don't know why I don't just copy all this. And then instead of create server, we're going to create a client int, okay? And we're going to give it I don't know why this is called text. This should be like IP. And then we'll say IP, excellent. Okay, so now that is our client. And then if it's a client, then we also want to start game, which will also hide the UI, but it will not load the level. It'll just hide the UI and prepare the game for the server to propagate that scene change through this level spawner over here that we'll see in a minute. Okay, so we've got our client press logic in there. We've got our host, which is essentially our server setup. And again, like in this ready area or anything like that, you can do a detect here that says like, if dedicated server or headless server, you can do some checks there to automatically start the server if you want, but I'm not going to cover that today. So now let's take a look at the level. We don't want to call this from a client context. We want to make sure this is only the server dealing with it. So let's add a server check. Server. And then so if it's not a server, it's a client, we just kick them out and say, you're not supposed to be here. Okay, so let's set up our callbacks for the server. So this is just in case somehow there was an existing player connected when this instance had spawned. I don't really understand or know off the top of my head what instance that would occur, but if somehow there was a previous connection, it would add the actual player, it would spawn the player into the game. Or maybe there was a player on the host side that it would spawn. I'm just not sure, but let's move on. So here's one of the things I was telling you about with the dedicated server. If it detects this dedicated server, we'll go ahead and add a player as well because I'm sorry, if it's not a dedicated server. So what we're going to do today is we're going to run in host mode, and in host mode is not a dedicated server. So what that means is that we'll actually automatically add a local player on the host as well. So it'll act as a host and a client. So if you did run it as a dedicated server, you wouldn't want it to automatically add this because that would be hosted on like some EC2 instance or somewhere in the cloud. And you want your clients to be true clients and not just some, host client combination. So this players is just going to be the players object that we're going to add the players to. It's like a placeholder node where all the players are going to get shoved. So let's just do that really quick. So we're going to add child. You're basically adding a child player scene to it for every player or every client that's in the game. Pass our character. All right, so what that's going to do is we're going to load our, so if we need to add a player, we're going to load it from the player scene that we created earlier. We're going to add an ID, and then we're going to give him a random position on the map, name it with the string version of the number ID, and this will also add that child with a index using a pretty identification there. So what did I do wrong here? I got one too many. I always do that. Okay, typos. All right, and let's see if we want to get rid of a player. Okay, so if that player doesn't exist, we ignore it. Otherwise, let's remove the player. Excellent. We got to wrap this in a string. Oh, that's the little things you get hung up on. All right, so I think we're almost done with this class, and I think we have one more to do. We got to kill our callbacks when the game exits. So let's do an exit tree. So if we're not a multiplayer instance, don't worry about it because we shouldn't be worrying about it. There we go. And we're going to disconnect those callbacks. Nice. Okay. So that'll help clean up our, am I not supposed to put parentheses? Yeah, I always do that. All right. There we go. Okay, so we set up our callbacks for when a peer is connected or disconnected to the server, and we go ahead and add a player if this is not a dedicated server. And this is our add player functionality right here. We'll load a character from the player scene and place them underneath this player object over here. Okay, so I think we got our level ready. Let's move on to the player side of things. I guess before we do that, let's bang out this player input really quick. So we're going to use a RPC to indicate jumps instead of trying to synchronize that for this example. All right, and then let's do set process to run. If this is an authority, so it allows only the local client that has authority to use the inputs here. my player MUL. Get unique ID. Okay, so we'll set that up, and then down here, our input direction is going to equal our input.get vector. Man, I still got to do all the input setup. That's okay, it's quick. Okay, so if our spacebar's hit, we'll go ahead and hit our jump RPC, and then let's make a jump RPC really quick. So when a client jumps, it'll call to the server and let everybody know that that player is jumping. All right, so we got our player input set up, and let's finish out this part. You know, I almost don't want to touch this because it's going to work out of the box, because I'm still going to have to do all the movement inputs, all this stuff. I'll just do it, whatever. Okay, come over to project settings and input map, add new action, move right, move left, move right. So move left, we'll just hit A, then right, D, forward, W, and this one, S. Okay. All right. So move back to the player object. And so we got to do a couple things here. We got our gravity set up. Let's create and export a player ID so we can track our players. We'll call it player equals 1 by default, and we'll set an ID when it's passed in. Player equals ID, and then we'll go ahead and set that to the player input, so we know what the client is that is acting on that authority, and we'll pass in that ID to establish that. Player input maps to this guy. Okay, so now that we have the player input, let's go ahead and drag that file over there to connect the player input, which is going to synchronize what we're doing and the character's movement across the server and clients. Server synchronization, and then player needs to be set to the player script. I think we're really close. Just want to double check the player object again. We actually need to track the player input in the player object so we can apply the movement. Player input, perfect. Okay, and we don't need the ready, and let's see. This looks this is like the old jump thing, so we're not going to use that. If input is jumping and is on floor, velocity, y equals jump velocity, okay. And then otherwise, let's reset it. Okay. And then down here, we're not going to use this stuff. So let's get rid of all this. And what we'll do is we're going to use the input direction. So we got our speed, we got our velocity. I think this will work out of the box. We've got our player input wired up to our player input synchronization, and the player object is aware of our input here. And let's go check out our level. I think we're good. I know I'm forgetting something. Oh, the synchronization. Okay, so this was something that threw me for longer than I'd like to admit, but these synchronization things, you can't just leave them alone and assume everything will be synchronized for you. You actually have to go add the properties that you wish to synchronize. Imagine that. Okay, so let's synchronize the player and the property position, and then we're gonna synchronize the player again, and we're gonna synchronize their player number. And we don't really care about syncing that because it'll just spawn with the correct value. And then if we want to do player velocity, okay, so the player velocity isn't there. So what we'll do is we'll type velocity, and we just hit this add from path, and then we'll go ahead and spawn with that and sync with that. So that's our player synchronization, and that is the bread and butter behind what is going to cause this player to be able to sync back to the server and out to the other peers. Okay. So let's lower that. And then I think for the player input, let's just go ahead and sync the input direction. So let's click on player input and then input direction, which is right there. Okay, so that's like which way we're heading. And we don't need to care about the spawn for that. Okay, Man, if this works first try, I know I'm forgetting something, but let's just run it. Oh yeah. So a couple things here. Well, a couple things in a second. Run with multiple instances allows you to do this magic. So host mode, host is pressed, but nothing happened because I don't think I've wired it up. Okay, so I knew I forgot something. So kill those. Let's go back to our startup script. And did I not? I thought I did. What did I say? Client pressed. It should have created it. What happened? Was it not saved? Oh, I think I forgot to add the level script to the freaking world level. Okay, yeah, so I didn't do animation, but look, jump works. Okay, so of course we're not gonna have any camera or strafing or any kind of rotation or anything because we just have this very basic mouse and keyboard inputs, but that is not too much trouble to add. So this is our server / host or client host. I guess host means client and server in one, so that's what this is. And then let's connect our client and see. Okay, wow. Did I get it working? So they're both being controlled by the same keyboard and mouse, which is a problem. So if you want to debug issues with this, I wanted to show you something that I wasn't totally aware of. If you go over this remote tab and you look under this debug tab, there's session 1 and session 2. So if I hit session 2, it'll actually change this to the different, see how I just hit session 1 at the bottom and it changed over here? That indicates the two different sessions of the instances of the game that are running. So they both seem to have, so this is player 1, so this should be to the local player to the host, and this should be the client player, which gets created, that I created second. So I don't see anything that's jumping out in the console, and these sessions look to be identical, which is usually okay. Maybe there's an issue with the inputs. Maybe I am mixing up the inputs, or I'm not setting the individual client authority correctly. But let's see if I pull up the other one. And so as you guys can see, I'm in this window and I'm moving, and so it's actually moving the same player on both screens, which isn't correct. And then if you look over here, it's moving the wrong character. So I believe I have an issue with my camera not being attached to the correct player. So I think we're close. Let me just dive into this a little bit more and see what I can do to fix that. See if I can drag over this camera object. I'm gonna control drag. And there's our camera 3D. And I think in this, let's spin up a ready function really quick. So I guess this is what this is going to do is if our player ID for this instance of the character player model it matches the unique ID that the network ID has, then we go ahead and assign the camera over here to them. And I don't know if this is going to fix it. Let's just give it a shot and see what happens. So we got host mode, and we got that guy moving, and we'll come over to client mode, and that guy's moving. Okay, so I think I fixed it. I think that was the problem because it's not moving. Okay, so I'm him. Okay, I see the other guy, so I'm controlling him. He's not moving, and me, I'm like somewhere else off the screen. So I'm gonna run right in behind him, and it should slam into him. Perfect. Look at that. So I'm gonna slam into him. Bam. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I've got a working multiplayer synchronization setup. You can add animations to show the different animations that the character is doing. We're doing jump. We're using a RPC to allow the character to jump. And again, I showed you a little bit how you can debug between using the remote tab over here to see the different instances. And if you come down onto this debugger, you can see session 1 and session 2. And then there's also the errors panel. It's kind of a lot of nested menus, but if you watch that top menu, you can see it'll show you what's going on with the different remote sessions. And I think that's pretty cool and really powerful. And again, this server, you can, with some minor tweaks to it, you can really just take advantage of this right out of the box and deploy this to some backend server and have a immediate multiplayer game set up and have your friends go ahead and connect to it from wherever in the world. And like I said in one of my other videos, I do plan on keep building upon all this, and I'm basically learning as I go and trying to show everybody like how easy it is to use this. So far Godot has been really smooth and pretty easy to get up and running. I'm thinking about making a lobby system that's outside of the Godot engine and maybe have a lobby system inside Godot for a minute, so that if you wanted to host a whole complete package of a Godot instance somewhere and be able to handle matchmaking and lobby. I was thinking about doing one of those examples, and then a lobby example where it's separate and matchmaker separate from a Godot backend. So let me know if you guys are interested in seeing something like that. Let me know what you think about this multiplayer setup, and if you've got any questions or anything or comments about how this went, let me know, and I'll post the link to the actual project that this is basically completely based off. I know that it's mostly based off them, other than like the models and you know, actually having a real character running around, a real 3D character, but it's nice to see somebody walk through step by step and see that process. So like always, if you liked it, if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of the stuff I've got coming out. And again, thanks for watching.